Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money Podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today is a very special reunion 2020 episode. What is that? That's when I had on a guest in the past, and I like him so much I had to bring him right on back. So today's return guest is Brian Burke, and he is President and CEO over at Praxis Capital. Brian, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on again.
Oh, man, it's like the podcast family reunion. I'm excited. I know you got a big announcement today, but before we get into that, I don't want to assume all our new listeners caught the first episode that we did together. So let's just start off with talking a little bit more about what you do over at Praxis Capital.
Yeah, absolutely happy to. So we're a multifamily investment and operating shop. So we buy multifamily properties nationwide, and we renovate them, improve the income, add value to them, hold them for a period of time, and then eventually resell them. So really we're a financial services business where we just are focused on providing a fair return for our investors.
What kind of properties do you typically focus on? Geography? I mean, a lot of investors listening. Let's give us a little bit more of a breakdown.
Yeah, so we're buying stuff that's pretty much mostly between, call it 15 million and 50 million currently. Multifamily properties, stuff that's built after 1980 in a variety of markets. And we currently either own in or are looking to own in markets such as Phoenix, Tucson, Vegas, the major Texas metro markets, Atlanta, Georgia, Orlando and Tampa, Florida, North Carolina's Research Triangle market, Nashville, Tennessee, and a few others.
That's fantastic. And anything interesting that you're seeing in terms of real estate trends or otherwise from your vantage point so far in 2020?
Well, 2020 is off to a pretty busy start. We had a real slow end to 2019 with almost no deal flow coming across our desks in the fourth quarter, but 2020, all that pent-up seller demand started to show its face, and now we're pretty much buried in deal flow and have been for about the past 30 to 45 days. So it's a real busy time for us as we're sorting through the good deals from the bad and looking to source our next acquisition. This is going to be a big year for us because we're selling about 1,000 units ourselves this year, and last year we bought 1,000 units, and this year, if we want to add 1,000 units to our portfolio, we'll have to buy 2,000 because of our sales. So it's going to be an interesting year for sure.
Woo! So you're not going to be busy at all, it sounds like, right?
Not at all.
That's awesome. And still, you managed to be releasing a book. So let's get into this book you have coming out in April. So the HandsOff Investor. So tell me a little bit more about the inspiration for you creating this.
Well, the inspiration really came from a couple of things. There was two different things that geared me towards writing this book. First was I have a friend of mine that was a journeyman grocery clerk who saved up for most of her working years to buy a fourplex. Bought a fourplex, watched it appreciate in value over a number of years, sold it, invested all of the proceeds that she received, which essentially amounted to her entire life savings, into a real estate offering, a syndicated real estate offering, and subsequently discovered that the sponsor that she invested with was a crook, and she lost her entire life savings. No. And, that really affected me watching that happen and seeing that happen to someone that I knew and cared about. And then at the same time, here I am as a real estate sponsor and talking to investors all over the country who are investing in our offerings and listening to the questions that they ask about the assets that we're acquiring and the questions they ask about our experience and track record. And I discovered that even the accredited investors and the sophisticated investors and some of the really smart investors didn't know what questions to ask, didn't know what things to look for, didn't know the tricks sponsors could play to make the results look better than they were. And I realized that there really was no comprehensive source for someone to turn to learn how do you properly invest in a syndicated real estate offering? How do you properly vet a syndication sponsor to make sure that the story that I just told you about my friend doesn't happen to you?
Man, that's awesome. What a service. And I love when a book comes out like that. So meaning it's from your expertise, it's from you just kind of listening to the market, from the questions that people are asking you, and based off of that, you write the book and you really serve the need in that market. So that's absolutely amazing. And when the book comes out, we're going to have you back on the show because I want to definitely do a deep dive into it and get more into it. But that being said, so Brian, if somebody's going to read the book and they're looking at, so you named a couple of things, but I do want to go a little bit further. Can you share, because I know you're story-based, so I know you have some stories in there. Can you share a story from the book? You don't have to get too many spoilers, but a story from the book that stuck out to you.
Well, the story I just told you about the friend I worked with is actually a story that's in the book, and I think it probably is one of the my favorite stories just because it's one of the motivating reasons why I bought it. But I do have another interesting story, and people investing in real estate, and they see real estate investing as a passive investment opportunity, and that's really what it is when you're investing in a syndicated offering. But I told the story in the book about my great-grandmother who was worked as a housekeeper for a family, a live-in housekeeper for a family, and she got some good stock advice from the guy that she worked for, who was an investor. And she invested a few dollars back in the early 1900s in some oil stocks. And she actually took the physical stock certificates and put them in a safe deposit box. We found them about 80 years later. And, the value of those stocks was pretty incredible. And, it's interesting that you can make a financial investment in some paper stock certificates, stick them in a safe deposit box. They'll pay you a dividend. As long as you own them, they'll go up in value as long as you own them. But if you try to do that with real estate, if you bought a parcel of real estate and completely ignored it for 80 years, what do you think would happen? The first thing that would happen would be that the tenants would stop paying rent, and then, it would get taken over by transients and destroyed and burned down, and then the city would file an abatement. They would probably tear the house down and then lien the property taxes for the cost of the abatement and then foreclose on the house. So, real estate is not a passive investment, no matter how you look at it. And it's kind of a favorite story of mine that, there's a lot of advantages to investing in real estate, but being completely passive isn't one of them.
Man, I love that. I love that story. It's like grandma and the old drip plans. I mean, I used to be in financial services for many years, and I remember when somebody would bring in like these bags of stock certificates, and I'm like, wow, this is the way it was done once upon a time. Absolutely right. Which by the way, for the passive investor that's using compound interest and set it and forget it, I say that it's still an amazing thing because out of sight, out of mind, right? Like I know that there's some times that some people kind of raid the investment account to do some other things. Well, in that case, if it's just the certificate in the safe deposit box, out of sight, out of mind, amazing what happens over 80 years.
Oh yeah.
So Brian, if somebody is listening to this and they want to learn more either about Praxis Capital or about the upcoming book, I mean, what's the best way for them to reach out and to learn more?
Well, to learn more about Praxis Capital is simple. You can go to our website. It's praxcap.com. It's praxcap.com. You can learn all about what we're doing here at Praxis. If you want to learn more about the book, the place to go is going to be biggerpockets.com/store. That's the Bigger Pockets bookstore. It's not on there yet, but I'm told that end of March it's going to launch on the BP website as a pre-sale with orders available on April 16th.
Man, that's awesome. Well, hey, Brian, I'm really excited to get you back on the show once that thing goes live. Definitely want to do some more promo and get more of the word out about the book. So all great stuff there. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Leave me a review. If you're watching this on the Mission Matters Money YouTube channel, then leave us some comments on the video section. Want to know what you thought about it and also what you're doing in real estate investing. Let's keep the conversation going over on the YouTube community. And Brian, thanks again for coming on the show.